Well, it's finally time to do my first deck spotlight since the launch of the Heroes of Skyrim expansion, and if you have seen any of my previous deck spotlights, it should come as no surprise that this is a list that features a large amount of charge. So, going in the same vein as I have done in the past, I decided to see what I could do to take advantage of the charge keyword. I've said before, and I'm sure I will say it again, I think charge is the most powerful of the keywords that are available. And I think that kind of speaks to truth when you look at the general stats on creatures that have charge compared to creatures and their stats with other keywords. Ward might be close, and there's a couple other ones, but charge just brings such a level of utility in that your opponent can't really respond to it, and that's super key. And that means respond to damage coming directly at them. It means respond to you trading. The best they can do is maybe try to hide things in the shadow lane or behind guards, but for the most part, charge means that you can dictate actions, and that's really important in a game. So, yeah, in the past I had done Crusader lists. I did a deck spotlight on a deck I called Ray Chargels back when Divine Fervor still cost 4 magicka. It was very charge-centric and buff-centric. I really enjoyed playing that deck. Then, after the Divine Fervor nerf, I started hunting around. I ended up creating what I called Charger. It was basically the same list, but instead in Archer instead of Crusader. The idea was to, instead of using Divine Fervor, use Hidden Trail, and then also take advantage of things like Cliff Racer that were already in Agility, and I was a big fan of that deck. Then we had the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood expansion hit. We got some new tools that were introduced, and I stuck those in the deck list, and so I did a spotlight that I was calling, I believe, Charger the Sequel at the time. So yeah, this deck that I'm going to share with you today has a long history with me. It's something that I always try to make work. It's really rooted in an old Magic the Gathering strategy called Suicide Red. It's basically an all-in deck archetype, right? It's face or bust. And you just have to, well, quite frankly, you kind of have to change your mindset when you play the deck, period. So let's go ahead and take a look at the list, and then we'll talk about what's included, why it's included, and how you have to play this differently from almost any other Legends deck that you may have played before. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the current list that I'm using up on the screen. I will say up front that this list has went through a couple of different iterations, so if you have watched me on stream, or if you're watching the games at the end of this video that I normally include, you may see some inconsistencies, and that's just because I'm constantly tinkering things. While I think this list is certainly good, and I think it's viable, I think that there is room for fine-tuning still. I'm still kind of figuring out what the right numbers and ratios are for certain cards, but primarily this list is actually split into two key core areas. This list, top to bottom, is designed to hopefully have your cards fall in one of two main areas. They either are cards that represent direct damage from hand, meaning when I play this, I should be doing damage to my opponent. Not to say that they all get used that way. For example, Lightning Bolt is in this list, right? So Lightning Bolt represents direct damage to my opponent. Do I have to use it on my opponent? I don't have to, but 9 times out of 10 in this deck, you're actually going to. And we'll talk about how you kind of pilot this a little bit later. But yeah, core set of cards that represent damage from your hand. Now these can be in the form of charge creatures, and that's certainly a very large number here. We got things like Nord Firebrand. We got things like the new Stormcloak Vanguard that we'll talk about in a minute. You know, Battle Rager Orc, Rampaging Minotaur, as I like to call him, Underworld Vigilante, so on and so forth, right? So you got your charge creatures. And then there are still another subset of creatures that kind of fall into this category because of summon effects. So Sharpshooter Scout is included partially because of the prophecy and partially because of the versatility, but worst case scenario, they can still shoot your opponent in the face for 1, and that does sometimes matter. Afflicted Elit is in the current version that I'm playing. Same reason. It does direct damage to your opponent, and it's a body. Sometimes it also draws you a card off of your own rune, but for the most part, it's just meant to be direct damage. You know, things like that. Similarly, and this is another card that we'll talk about in a little bit, Dark Rebirth technically represents damage from hand in a lot of instances, and so on and so forth. So that's like subset number one. So the second half of the deck are buffs. All the ways that I make the damaging creatures do more damage, hopefully right from hand. So if we're going to be playing a large number of creatures with charge, we should try to capitalize on that and make them that much bigger or that much stronger, because they represent that much more burst potential that your opponent is either unprepared for or just simply can't deal with. So in this case, it's the items, right? Like we're running Battlemage, we're running Shieldbreaker that I'll talk about in a little bit. You know, Orc Clan Captain falls into this category. Yes, it's a creature in a body, but it's really meant to be one of those buff slots. Same thing with the Northwind Outpost. Same thing with the Corsair ship. Yeah, it spawns a 2/1, but really this is about affecting your future creatures with charge. So on and so forth, right? So that's really the entirety of the list. I think the only card that doesn't fall into one of those two categories, at least in my current iteration, is Earthbone Spinner. We currently run 2 Earthbones as a utility card because it does help you punch through creatures with guard, and it does also potentially kill some of the pesky threats that are still floating around that have 1 health. Specifically, I'm talking about things like Breton Conjurer or Crystal Tower Crafter. I know that card is kind of been nerfed to the ground, but believe it or not, I still see it every now and then. And so on and so forth, right? So we run a couple of Earthbones just for that. But for the most part, it's one of those 2 core groups, right? You're either increasing your damage done or you're dealing damage. So before I talk about piloting, I want to talk about what's changed. So in the past, I obviously ran a Crusader deck, and then I ran an Archer deck. So why Battlemage, right? Why am I giving it a try in this version or in this format now post Heroes of Skyrim? So really, it's because of some of the new cards that were introduced, and I want to kind of take a look at those and what they bring to the table. So first, unrelated to the Battlemage choice, but I still think it's important enough to cover it, I want to cover the Strength editions. The Stormcloak Vanguard looks really unassuming on paper, but he's fantastic in this deck. He's a 2-cost 1/1 with charge, but when he dies, he gives you a 5/5 for 4. Now, he's really unassuming because a lot of times with the buff cards in this deck, he represents 2 magicka for dealing 2 damage or 3 damage. He's one of the few creatures that I do often trade with. I mean, you'll still go face with him, but I'm typically in the early game, if I've got a slower hand, I'm less afraid to trade with him because I know that 2 turns later, he's just given me a 5/5 for 4 that I can play on curve. The 5/5 is still a strength minion, so it still gets full value from Northwind Outpost, and so on and so forth. He's just really good at kind of delaying your opponent's opening game plan long enough for you to set up your massive damage spike. Or late game, if you've got 2 or 3 buff cards on the table, then he's a 2 magicka for 4 damage kind of guy, right? Like he does all of the things you're kind of hoping to have him do at the moment. So I really like Stormcloak Vanguard as an addition from Heroes of Skyrim. Similarly, Shieldbreaker. Shieldbreaker is not just a card with a really cool animation, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But this is everything this deck ever wanted. It punches through guards and it represents additional damage from hand. You slap this thing on a creature, you get 2 bonus damage, and you go right through that Hive Defender that was in the way. Yeah, the Hive Defender's probably going to trade back, but you just got that extra 3, 4, 5 damage in, and sometimes that's all you needed to help push you over the top, to really push that inevitability in the game. So, really big fan of Shieldbreaker. The other card that came out in Heroes of Skyrim that kind of made me want to try the Battlemage list. I've been wanting to try this as Battlemage for a while anyway, even more so since Fall of the Dark Brotherhood because of Corsair ship. And Lightning Bolt has obviously been a thing. Sentinel Battle Mace has been a thing for a long time. So Battlemage made sense to try. But for me, the thing that really made me want to try it is Dark Rebirth. So, Dark Rebirth in this deck is very interesting because it represents essentially Swift Strike. So Swift Strike is something I ran, I think, as a 1 or a 2 of off and on in my Charger list because it makes any of your big charging creatures basically double their damage for 3 magicka, right? You play an Underworld Vigilante, you got like 2 buffs on the board, it swings for 6, For 3 more magicka, you swing for 6 again, right? So for the magicka investment of a Tazcad, you do twice the damage of a Tazcad, right? So Swift Strike is good, and Dark Rebirth on any creature with charge is basically Swift Strike, because the new one gets summoned, it has charge, it can immediately attack again. However, we get a little bit more flexibility in this list because we do have things like Afflicted Elite, Earthbone Spinner, Sharpshooter Scout, where we can take advantage of the summon effect, Morkel Gatekeeper again, and so you get a little bit more flexibility. It's also pretty decent. Again, if you've got a really slow start, you can use it on like the Stormcloak Vanguard, because you're going to get a Vanguard back and put a 5/5 in your hand that you can likely play the next turn, and then so on and so forth, right? So Dark Rebirth has been kind of sneaky good for me. For a while I was running 3 of them, but I'm currently cutting it to 2 because it's really clunky when you get multiples. But in the instances where it shines, it like really shines. I'm pretty impressed with that card in this list. Now, the one drawback to this, as opposed to, say, Swift Strike, is obviously any creature that has an item isn't going to come back with their item. But that's pretty much it, right? And that's the sort of thing that you're just going to have to know and plan around. I'm not currently running it in this list, but one of the cards that I have considered to be a flex spot, and I have tried in the past, is actually Merrick. And if you actually pull it off, Dark Rebirth with Merrick is pretty spectacular. But ultimately Merrick got cut because he's surprisingly too slow. He was very rarely winning games like by himself. He was either letting me win more in games where I was already snowballing, or I was just not playing him because the games were decided before I ever got to 7 Magicka. I think I could probably count on one hand the number of games where I felt like Merrick was the thing that got me the win. So as of right now, he's not in the list. But he's certainly a card that I consider like a flex spot, and I can understand if you do run him. And if you do, then Dark Rebirth has potential synergy there. So other cards that I have tried but have since cut, just so you're aware, I tried Shadowmere for a bit. There's just still too many Earthbone Spinners to make Shadowmere worth your time as of right now. I want the horse to work. I try all the time to make him to work. I just don't think he's got enough synergy to take one of the other card spots away. Right now, this list is actually pretty packed. I get asked about Mighty Ally a lot, but it is a card that doesn't do one of those 2 key things, right? It doesn't represent direct damage from hand, and it doesn't buff my other guys. Basically, Mighty Ally is planning for your opponent to not have a response. So ultimately, I expect my opponent to be proactive, and so I want my stuff to hit the ground running, hit him in the face, because I know that they're going to die. So that leads me into actually talking about how you pilot this deck real quick. This is not a normal Legends list by any means, and playing it is likely going to make you feel pretty uncomfortable for a bit. Legends is a creature-centric game, naturally, and it's certainly the kind of game that for a long time has been dominated by some mid-range strategies. I'm not saying full mid-range lists. Obviously, you know, Prophecy Battlemage, Prophecy Assassin, like Token Crusader lists, they can all be very aggressive, and I'm not saying that those are mid-range lists, but mid-range strategies have been the way to go for as long as I can remember. And when I say that, I mean making sure that you're keeping some control of the board, right? You don't want your opponent to get out of control, you know, take away their key threats when possible, try to protect your key threats. There's kind of like that, that dance that you do. Other than like really, really, really high priority threats, and I'm talking like Dawnstar Healer, you know, things that are going to definitely lose you the game, for the most part, you don't typically trade with this deck. There is no like mid-range strategy. Now, I'm not saying that trading is always wrong, because there's always instances where sometimes the trade is correct, right? If you are paying attention to what your opponent's strategy is and you're doing the math and you think that they have lethal next turn, yes, trade. Make sure you don't die. You cannot win at 0 health, so do that. But just as like a general rule of thumb, I treat creatures in this as expendable. I treat almost every charge creature as a lightning bolt. I expect to play it, get the damage out of it, and then that resource is gone. And as long as you're mentally kind of keeping that in your head, right, and you're managing the how much damage do I need to do with the limited resources I have, and just shove it face when it's appropriate, then I think you'll be fine. But that's really what you're doing. You're just saying, like, I believe my deck is capable of bursting or doing more damage in a shorter amount of time than your deck, and that's including if you kill my guys. Because you gotta remember, if they're killing your guys, they're not hitting you, so that buys you time to top deck even more threats. And it's gonna feel really bad relying on top decks, right? Nobody likes that feeling. But because of the way the deck is built, it's like a 50-50 shot every turn to draw something that does damage. So you just kind of got to do it. Like, this is almost like a leap of faith kind of deck, right? Like, you got to try to shove it face. Again, I'm not saying that you don't ever trade. It's just that more often than not, going face ends up proving to have been the right path. I mean, obviously we're a deck that plays Lightning Bolt Prophecies, so even just like YOLO, get them down to 4 is enough. But really, when it comes to piloting, like, it's going to feel weird, because Legends over the last year, if you're a veteran, has taught you, like, board control is important, controlling the field lane is important, giving your opponent free cards from prophecies is not a good thing, right? Like, those are all the things that we've been taught. Like, aggro is bad, aggro is punished. Value mid-range is good because you're playing high-efficient threats that can potentially deal with the tempo swings granted from a prophecy, and so on, and so on, and so on. In this, other than the defensive prophecies, you kind of don't care. Like, really, the only things that are your real big problems are health gain and, like, super heavy amounts of guards. Now, there's enough tech in here that you can typically deal with guards, either through straight trades and then pushing through. Rampaging Minotaur, or as I call him, Meme Tar, is a card that consistently gets shit on whenever people see the list because they're like, that card is junk. But what people forget is that it's oftentimes not a 3-2 for 4, it's usually like a 5-2 for 4. And the breakthrough is relevant because that 1 extra damage, that 2 extra damage, or heavens forbid if you hit the jackpot and somebody played a Tree Minder against you, that all that extra damage that goes through matters. This deck is very much a deck of inches, not miles. You just have to do enough to kill them before they stabilize. That's your goal. So, yeah, like, you just try to punch through. That's why you run the Shield Breakers. That's why you run the Earthbones. Now, if they get, you know, guard on guard on guard on guard on guard on guard on guard, yeah, you're probably going to lose, right? But that's, like, I'm oversimplifying, but that's every deck. If your opponent draws every answer to your strategy, you're going to lose regardless of the deck you're playing. It's just that guards and life gain are the answers to our strategy. Those kinds of decks might not do well, let's say, against mid-range Sorcerer. And so I think that this deck has, again, at least some viability on the ladder in the, like, rock, paper, scissors mindset. Like, this is the kind of deck that, I'm not saying that it never loses, because no archetype has got 100% win rate against another, but for the most part, this deck is heavily favored, has, in my opinion, an insane matchup against, like, Ramp Scout, for example. Ramp Scout does try to play guards, and if it's the Dragon Scout, it does have some life gain, right, with the 3-4, but it doesn't have the burst life gain that, like, a Dawnstar Healer provides. The guards aren't gaining health on top of it. You're not dealing with Dark Harvester. You're not dealing with Knight of the Hour. And, again, it runs like Tree Minder that you're just going to run right over anyway. So this deck is great against Ramp Scout, but, you know, a Prophecy style mage that does hit like 2 Knights of the Hour and a Dark Harvester on you, yeah, you're probably going to lose. Surprisingly, this deck does really well against Prophecy Battlemage, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, gee, shouldn't that, like, beat the shit out of this because you're punching them and they get a bunch of free stuff and then they just punch you back harder? It takes a little bit of skill to pilot, but because this has such a high burst potential, you can usually win that game with a solid, like, 2 to 3 bursts that are just calculated. So, like, you kind of toy around with, like, getting them on the edge of a rune, and then it's like you break 2 runes, and then they get, like, 1 good, like, counter swing, and you kind of gauge the rest of the game from there. If they counter swing going straight face, then you know, okay, we're in a race. Maybe I save up for 1 last good burst. If they counter by trading, then that's fantastic for you because, again, your mindset should be that whenever I play anything in this deck, it should be considered to be expendable, right? My charge creatures are supposed to be one and dones. Anything beyond the first swing is just extra value. But if they trade into you, then sweet. You're already still on your game plan. You just reload, you punch them in the face again. They're an aggro deck. They're going to hit you. They're going to give you cards back. And your burst is better. So, surprisingly, it's got a better matchup than I thought it would originally in that scenario. Yeah, life gain and heavy defensive prophecies are rough. So, you know, thankfully there are other decks that are good against those matchups, and so again, I think that we're in this like kind of rock paper scissors mentality for the meta. But I do think this deck has a spot, and I've been pretty successful with it. Some other content creators have been very successful with it. I played this at the Invitational. I thought I did pretty well with it there as well. So yeah, I wanted to share it with you guys. And so if you play against this in the near future, I'm sorry. I know that it can create some unfun moments when you're on the losing end of it. Nobody likes losing by turn 4 or turn 5, but it's what happens sometimes when you get a good draw with this. So, yeah, like I always do, we're going to include some games. Again, if the deck lists don't 100% match up here, I would just say, yeah, I've been tinkering with it. This isn't even the final list. This is just the list I'm running now. I feel the most comfortable with this build, but feel free to tinker with it and enjoy, or hate me for releasing this into the wild, one or the other. As always, I love you guys. Thanks for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands. And he went 13-1 with it, so we've got some pretty high hopes. So we're going first against Scout. As long as they don't stabilize, we should be alright.
My arrows shall fly
So
true.
the only thing going well for us is that a lot of people think when they see aggressive Battlemage here, they assume that it is Prophecy, and ours is not Prophecy. This is a little sad with the current hand, but I like this. Oh, hi! Hello, Andrew.
I'll scout ahead.
He liked what he saw. That's not bad, though.
Come and warm yourself.
So there we go. Absent of a 3-drop. We obviously don't Dark Rebirth here. Oh, that's a bummer if we don't have a 3-drop. Even better.
Come and warm
My
yourself.
arrows shall fly true. Fire!
We get to play another outpost and drop a body on the board. Now he's likely going to ring into Histmage here, but the mace means we can trade, keep the bodies, and keep on going.
Scout ahead.
Oh, he doesn't have Histmage. Even better, better, better.
What have we here? If I fall, the Hist will reclaim me.
So this is an interesting situation to be in. Because on the one hand, right, I can swing, and then I can mace, and then he doesn't have, barring like a minus effect, a good way to get rid of it by itself. But I'm down a creature. The other hand, I could mace and attack and then get just 3 in, but then he takes out my big guy. So in that instance, actually, I think that trading is the proper line.
Fire!
Because again, we want maximum pressure. So ideal cards for the next couple of turns. Raiding Party would be fantastic. It's a lot of burst damage and it helps develop the board for a future merit.
The waters of life.
That's kind of a bummer.
Moving shadow.
Unless we draw. Yeah. I mean, it feels really bad to bolt a Tree Minder, but this bolt turns into 7 to the face by doing this, so downside is he's running Skulk and Scout. So I don't know if this is fetching curses or silences or what, but either way, this is gonna die. Like, he can trade and trade, or this is fetching a curse. Yeah, okay, so he's totally fetching curses. So, bummer, but not the end of the world. Yeah, actually. I was considering whether we bolt there or not, but by bolting there, if we top deck a Vigilante, for example, then that represents lethal. Minotaur represents lethal. Wow, I can't believe he hit me. Hey, there it is. Can't believe he hit me to give me the cards. Like, that feels like a pretty big misplay on his part. But I can't complain. There we go. One in the books. Don't ask how you know. Fair enough. I just haven't seen Skulks and Ramp Scout. I'm not saying it's a bad choice. It's just an interesting choice. I would not call Merrick essential. I mean, I think that he's solid and has a lot of synergies, but I don't think he's required. Nor are the Relentless Raiders. So if you're looking to build a budget version of this, I would try swapping out Relentless Raiders for Afflicted Elit. And for Merrick, I would look for anything that has either, again, charge or... So like here, I'm going to throw these back for sure. Or some other immediate impact. So right off the top of my head, I know in Heroes of Skyrim, there's the 3/3 for 5 guy with charge. He's not super ideal in this because his slay ability is give you an item, and that's nice, but if you're slaying, you're not going face. So that's why I don't normally include him. But that's one option. The 8/8 Charge Dragon would also be fine in these colors, in my opinion.
Trolls take you.
I'm ready for anything.
Alright, so we're going second against Warrior, and we do not know what kind as of yet. But we're gonna go face is the place. Shieldbreaker is great if he plays Sower, or even in this scenario, that's kind of solid. It's a kind of a solid Shieldbreaker. Except Battle Rager also... Like, this gives us more damage now. But Battle Rager gets us another body on the board, and he's clearly on ramp now. And another body might be good. This is kind of a tough call. I feel like saving the Shieldbreaker for surprise is probably more important. This is also a better saturation of Magicka. If we had another 2-drop, I think I would consider going Shieldbreaker there, but... I think right now we do that. Man, still coming in. Ryujin, Blurred, Never Too Hooch, Bearded Panda Bear, Rock Lobster, Morrow. Yep, see, glad we saved the breaker. Bring LLZ, Pharrell Musiafa, and General Pinochet. Hello and welcome, everybody. I think we do it here, just because now everything but this survives the potential trade back.
Trolls take you.
See if we can maximize the amount of damage that we can push this turn. Which means more damage. I might need to think about taking off the audio. I love the Fuss Rada, but man, you guys are blowing it up tonight. Like, I don't even know what to do. Alright. Mummify is legit. However... So here's another interest. Well, alright, so... You could theoretically like bolt face and trade them all in, but this bolt is the same as attacking with both of these, but that leaves bodies on. So I think here the play is bolt, firebrand, swingy. Yeah, the follow train has no brakes. Leave the Fusserda, it's dope.
I will protect them.
So yeah, hopefully everybody's having a good hump day. Especially you, Gitaku, and Darkness, and Cat and Coconut. I'm trying to keep up, guys, I swear. You guys came in like a locomotive.
There's nowhere they can hide.
Gore and glory.
I really wish that I had one more Magicka, but it's alright. Even if he guards up over here, as long as he doesn't gain health, we're fine. Bringing the Cancer deck to the ladder? What? I mean, I'm sorry?
Face my
To be fair, I brought it to a tournament first, so it's not like it's a surprise.
It has been an engaging hunt.
Did I miss lethal? What was my lethal last turn? That's alright. To counter streamers? I mean, it doesn't counter it, though. Like, that's the funny part. Like, his deck doesn't counter my deck. His weird fucking top deck counters my deck.
I have no fear of you, cowardly
May you
skeever.
walk on warm sands.
Got a Baroness from Shadowfoot, which got one Magicka Assault, one Magicka Gatekeeper. Oh, man. Oh! Hello, Tailored Nation.
Clear your mind and retract.
Oh, look. It's Prophecy Mage. Really? We already have fucking 200 people at Legend? Apparently I am slacking.
Come and warm yourself.
I mean, you're right. Werebat Rage does counter the deck DX, except for that,
Out there?
he has to get to Rage. Like, we were 100% killing him.
I'm ready for
Yeah, I guess we do this way because it's a body. We were 100% killing him if he doesn't have Rage discounted. And even if we weren't able to kill him, we had answers for the Werebat. Like, we had Earthbone in hand. I just didn't Earthbone the Werebat because I looked at the Magicka and went, oh, we got time before Rage. You know what I mean?
Come and warm yourself. Glory.
So this is going to be fun. For the
A
record.
little distraction might prove useful.
Really? That asshole got drained from that? Okay. Yep, this is 100% Echo Commander Mundus full-on Prophecy.
Is someone out there?
This is literally Prophecy.deck. I mean, I could Shield Breaker, but then I do nothing else this turn. And either way, I have to kill this because this got drained as well. You hit Legend yesterday, started 130, and then went against 200 plus a few times. Ick. Apparently I'm slacking.
Gore and glory.
Alright, let's see what other prophecy we give him. Yeah, I'm saving the Shield Breaker.
Bless us, kind. May we serve you with every word.
Of course he gets drained. Come on, he's fucking 3 for 4 on drain. This is exactly why I hate the RNG effects. Exactly why I hate them. Drain. Because it's literally this every goddamn time. It's supposed to be random, but it's never actually random. It's never like they get regen every time. So goddamn frustrating.
Irma Mora tests us.
So the problem is he gets lethal too. I think that it's probably still this here. Because I can Shield Breaker through that, but then he can turn around and still crack it because of the lethal. I mean, Mundus into Echo seems balanced.
By the 8th, they will meet their makers.
Time to fight. Close ranks. Let nothing through. Talos.
I don't mind the prophecy heavy decks. Like, if I was just planning for traditional prophecy, it doesn't really bother me. It's that I have to plan for fucking 3 goddamn keywords every time right now. That's the issue. Because, again, like, this wouldn't be an issue if these were just the normal creatures, right? But the fact that, like, I can't even run my Nord into this, because then he would trade and then not be able to trade here. Well, I mean, he could with the Tome, but, like, the fact that he's got fucking lethal, or, like, the turn I put my 5/5 over here, I would have wanted to put it here to Shield Breaker and swing next turn, because this thing got fucking lethal, I couldn't. It's just, it's just non-stop one thing after the other. That's 100% the frustration, right? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The issue is that it makes it so that you can't play around, like, the information you would normally have, right?
You can't escape.
May I walk on warm salt? I'm definitely... Well, come on, man. We're starting the night off with 2... what are going to be absolute bullshit losses. Like, let's be clear here. Yeah, I don't even care about that. Like, at this point, it's already over. That puts him on the cusp. I might be able to after this game, DX.
Bless us, Kyle. May we serve you with every word.
For the record, this thing having charge is also a fucking problem.
The forest will not suffer your presence.
Oh, I don't win yet.
Bless us, kind. May we serve you with every word.
Believe me, I don't win yet. Yeah, drain, right? Again, it's always the same bullshit.
By our service, we honor Kai.
And a second guard that also has charge.
For the warrior wife.
Will not suffer your presence.
We need him to not have charge and drain together? Or, come on, really? What wins? Not that. Pretty damn close though, but not that. Yeah, pretty much everything is guard now guaranteed, which is the problem. I really needed to top deck a Vigilante there. Vigilante would have been a victory. This is only 6, but it does put me towards potential Lightning Bolt victory, I guess. I mean, is there any scenario where I don't do this? Because he's just going to play another guard.
I'm ready for
I'm just trying to think about what my outs are, right? Like, theoretically, if I do this and he doesn't gain immediate health next turn, we have Afflicted a Lit. Oh, for the record, he also went 5 for 5 on Prophecies. So, that's a thing.
Distraction might prove useful.
You can't escape.
Clear your mind and retract your claws.
He's also drawn 4 cards that heal, and he's gotten drained more than any other keyword. Oh, thank you! Thank you! There is justice in the world! Oh my god! Look, hold on, gang, hold on.
Time to fight. Time to fight. Time to fight.
I feel really good about this. I feel really fucking good about that one.
It's a worthy contest.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do the Uncle Pete thing.